And the Oscar goes to Clint Eastwood for Unforgettable.
Beverly Hills, 1993. In the grand lobby of the Four Seasons Hotel. The air was filled with laughter, clinking glasses, and the hum of Hollywood deals. Famous faces moved through the room, agents in designer suits, Oscar winners in dark sunglasses, and producers pitching their next big hit. By the bar, a young actor was cracking jokes, mimicking a tough cowboy voice. It was an impersonation of Clint Eastwood. People laughed, but across the room, the real Clint Eastwood stood quietly, watching. He didn't laugh. He didn't smile. He simply finished his drink, gave a slight nod to the bartender, and walked out without saying a word. That moment captured everything about Eastwood's personality. In a world full of noise, he preferred silence. In an industry built on shouting for attention, Clint Eastwood believed in letting your actions speak louder. At 94, he's still that man, quiet, powerful, and unforgettable. Throughout his long career, Eastwood built a reputation not just as a talented actor and director, but as someone who didn't waste time with people he couldn't respect. He didn't explode in public or make dramatic statements on social media. Instead, he made quiet decisions that spoke volumes, decisions like cutting someone off, refusing to work with them again, or simply walking away forever. And while Clint never made a list of enemies, stories from the past reveal a handful of people who pushed the wrong buttons. These are the 5 people Clint Eastwood likely never forgave. Some insulted his values. Others disrespected his methods. A few simply crossed a line they couldn't return from. And even though he rarely speaks about them publicly, their names still linger behind the scenes of Hollywood history. Today, we look at the moments that tested Eastwood's famous command, the stars who didn't make it back into his circle. Clint Eastwood has always been a man who believes in strength, courage, and personal responsibility. That's why when filmmaker Michael Moore released documentaries like Bowling for Columbine and Fahrenheit 9/11, it caught Clint's attention, but not in a good way. Moore's aggressive and opinionated style of filmmaking directly clashed with Eastwood's more grounded views. While Moore believed in calling out public figures and shaking the system, Clint saw it as crossing a line into disrespect. The real tension, though, came during an award show when Moore mocked Eastwood's stance on gun rights. Clint, who had always believed in the right to protect oneself, took Moore's comments personally. He didn't yell or cause a scene, but later at a press event, he quietly responded with a firm, almost chilling statement. "If he ever shows up at my place with a camera, I'll kill him," he said with a slight smirk. The audience laughed. But no one thought he was joking completely. It wasn't just a difference in opinion, it was a fundamental clash of values. Eastwood felt Moore was not just expressing an idea, but attacking a way of life. For Clint, freedom meant making your own choices, not being told how to live or think by a man with a camera. After that moment, Clint made it clear he wanted nothing to do with Moore. He didn't comment on his later work. He didn't appear in documentaries. He didn't shake hands or exchange words at events. The silence between them said everything. And in Hollywood, silence from Clint Eastwood is louder than any argument. While Moore moved on to other projects and other battles, Clint never forgot that moment. For him, it was more than a disagreement. It was a matter of principle. And once you break that trust with Eastwood, there's usually no going back. In the world of film, creative disagreements are common. Directors have different styles, and actors often bring their own ideas to the table. But when Clint Eastwood clashed with director Spike Lee, it became more than just a difference in filmmaking. It turned into something deeply personal. The issue began when Clint directed 2 war films, Flags of Our Fathers and Letters from Iwo Jima, which focused on World War II from American and Japanese points of view. Spike Lee publicly criticized Clint for not including black soldiers in the story, saying that African American troops played a key role in the Pacific battles and deserved to be represented. While the point raised a real concern about historical accuracy and inclusion, Clint felt the attack was unfair. He believed his story was about a specific group of soldiers, not a complete historical overview. Clint's response was sharp. "A guy like him should shut his face," he said in an interview, clearly upset. For Eastwood, who had spent decades carefully crafting his films with detail and purpose, The accusation felt like an insult. He wasn't against diversity, but he didn't like being told how to tell his story. Spike, known for being bold and unapologetic, didn't back down. The tension between the two remained unresolved. They didn't collaborate. They didn't appear at events together. And fans noticed. Two powerful directors, both respected, now stood on opposite sides of a cultural divide. For Clint, it wasn't about race. It's about respect. He felt Spike had taken a creative disagreement and turned it into a public attack. And while many fans still admire both men for their contributions to film, it's clear that Eastwood never forgave Spike Lee for making their creative dispute so personal. When Clint Eastwood chose Leonardo DiCaprio to play the lead in J. Edgar, it seemed like a perfect match. Clint, a legendary director with a clear vision, and Leo, a young actor known for deep performances and emotional range. But behind the scenes, the collaboration was far from smooth. Eastwood is known for his efficient, no-nonsense directing style. He likes to shoot fast, sometimes using the first take. He trusts his actors but expects them to be ready. DiCaprio, on the other hand, is known for diving deep into roles, exploring every detail, and doing multiple takes until it feels just right. That difference in style led to quiet tension on set. Leo wanted time. Clint wanted movement. The film turned out well, but the experience left a mark. Clint didn't criticize Leo publicly, but sources from the set say he was frustrated. To Clint, acting is about instinct and simplicity. To Leo, it's about layers and emotion. While both approaches have their place, the two just didn't connect. After J. Edgar, Clint never worked with DiCaprio again. He didn't call him out, but he also didn't invite him back. In Hollywood, that's often all the message you need. It wasn't hate. It was disappointment. Clint expected a partner, and got a perfectionist. And while Leo went on to win awards and star in blockbuster hits, Clint quietly moved on to other actors' ones who shared his pace and rhythm. Sometimes, forgiveness isn't about a fight. It's about realizing someone isn't the right fit and making sure they don't get a second chance. Comedy is a tricky thing. What makes one person laugh might offend another. And when it comes to icons like Clint Eastwood, jokes can easily cross a line. That's exactly what happened when comedian and actor Seth Rogen made a joke about Eastwood's political views. Clint had famously spoken at the 2012 Republican National Convention, delivering a speech to an empty chair meant to represent then-President Barack Obama. The moment became a viral sensation, and people had mixed reactions. Seth Rogen, never one to hold back, joked about the speech on social media and in interviews, calling it bizarre and embarrassing. To fans of Eastwood, it was just comedy. But to Clint, it was disrespect. Eastwood didn't respond publicly, but those close to him say he wasn't amused. He believed in free speech, but he also believed in dignity, especially for elders. Making fun of a 90-year-old man for expressing his beliefs didn't sit right with him. And unlike younger stars who might clap back on Twitter, Clint did what he always does: he stayed quiet. But that silence spoke volumes. He never worked with Rogen, never acknowledged him in interviews, never appeared at the same events. The door was closed. Seth probably didn't mean harm. But Clint didn't care about intentions, he cared about respect. In his world, there are some lines you don't cross, and mocking a man's legacy is one of them. Of all the people Clint Eastwood has clashed with, Gene Hackman might be the most surprising. Both men are respected actors. Both came from similar schools of thought. And both starred in some of the most important films of their time. When they worked together on Unforgiven, the 1992 Western that won multiple Oscars, people expected greatness and they got it. But behind the scenes, things weren't so smooth. Clint, who was directing, found Gene difficult to manage. Hackman had strong opinions, a short temper, and didn't always take direction well. Eastwood, calm but firm, wasn't used to push back. The two butted heads repeatedly during filming. At one point, Clint even had to tell Gene to lower his voice and calm down. For a director like Eastwood, who prided himself on quiet, respectful sets, it was a big deal. After Unforgiven, Clint never worked with Hackman again. He didn't trash him in public or hold a grudge in interviews. He simply moved on. The movie won awards, the performances were praised, but the partnership was over. Some say the problem was that both men were too similar, strong-willed, talented, and used to being in control. But Clint believed in respect on set, and when that's broken, it's hard to fix. Hackman eventually retired, and Clint continued to direct and act. But those who know the story say Unforgiven was a one-time thing, great on screen, but too tense off camera to ever happen again. Clint Eastwood never needed to scream to make a point. He didn't post angry tweets or write long blog posts about people who upset him. Instead, he let silence do the work. If someone crossed a line, he simply walked. At the heart of Clint Eastwood's story isn't just fame, talent, or longevity, it's integrity. Throughout his career, he made choices that didn't always match the popular trend. In fact, some of his most powerful work came from moments when he went against the grain. Whether it was directing $1 Million Baby, a film some critics dismissed early on, or taking on Gran Torino, which touched difficult social issues, Clint always followed his instincts, not the crowd. That's a rare trait in Hollywood, where public image often matters more than personal belief. But Clint never cared much for image. He cared about truth, grit, and telling stories that meant something. Forgiveness, for Eastwood, isn't just a moral decision, it's a reflection of trust. And once that trust is broken, rebuilding it is nearly impossible. Some people in his life did manage to earn his respect back. Others disappeared quietly from his world. But Clint never held grudges just to be spiteful. He simply chose peace over chaos. If someone brought conflict, drama, or disrespect, he walked away without saying a word. That wasn't weakness. It was control. It was power. It was Eastwood's way of showing he didn't need noise to stay strong. His silence was always louder than any headline. Off the screen, Clint lives by the same rules. Friends close to him say he's a man of few words but deep thoughts. He doesn't gossip. He doesn't complain. And he doesn't waste time on people who don't show loyalty or honor. In a city filled with fast friends and broken promises, Clint has stayed grounded. Maybe that's why he's lasted this long. He didn't just adapt to Hollywood, he survived it, on his own terms. Now, at 94, Clint Eastwood is more than just a movie star. He's a symbol, a reminder that in a world constantly changing, some values still matter. Respect, discipline, loyalty, and strength, not just the kind that wins fights, but the kind that lets a man walk away with dignity. While others chase attention and headlines, Clint remains the same stoic figure he was decades ago. He still shows up to film sets with quiet focus. He still speaks softly in interviews. And he still avoids talking about the people who disappointed him, not because he's afraid, but because he knows better. The 5 celebrities Clint Eastwood has likely never forgiven didn't just have differences with him. They challenged his values, crossed invisible lines, or forgot who they were speaking to, and in doing so, they lost access to one of the most respected figures in Hollywood. That's the thing about Clint. He doesn't burn bridges with flames. He just lets them fade away into the distance. And once they're gone, he never looks back. So, if you're wondering how a man like Clint Eastwood maintains such a strong presence at 94, the answer is simple. He chose his battles, honored his code, and never allowed disrespect to sit at his table. Some people might not understand that. But for those who do, Clint Eastwood's silence is more than just a personal choice. It's a legacy.